This was not leadership from Salah, it was pure self-indulgence and a betrayal of the dressing room.
I suspect this isn't exactly what Carragher had in mind. I mean, Roy Keane was more or less sacked by Manchester United.
Are they out of the title race? Who knows?
Is he really going to sit and just have coffee and cake on his sofa? Journalists and photographers are no longer allowed at Brighton due to reporting on Tony Bloom. Somebody told Gianni Infantino he was funny.
I'm not a big rabona man, if you ask me. And I've done some bad shows, you know.
Two thoroughly despicable men. Trump couldn't get around his own neck fast enough.
And you go in the kitchen and sort of retch in the sink or something like that.
That was funny, Trump. Good man.
He had just won a Peace Prize. Some of the village people, they can't lift their arms up to do the Y anymore, which I thought was... Scotland kick off against Haiti at 2 a.m, Morocco at 11 p.m, and Brazil at 11 p.m, 11:06, 11:25, 11:45. Let's start at Elland Road. Leeds 3, Liverpool 3. We'll get to the game, but before that, the big story is Mo Salah. Ian says, using Mo Salah's selection criteria of "I used to be good, so deserve to be picked forever," are Liverpool going to solve their centre-back problems by playing a 3 with Van Dijk, Hansen and Loro, or will Slot opt for a screen of Whelan and Souness in front of the 4? He was on the bench, he didn't come on. He spoke to Norwegian TV afterwards. An amazing video of a press officer in the background going, "Oh, no, wincing. Don't say that, Mo." Apparently, it's only the third time he's stopped for the media. Andy Hunter writing in the paper, the Egypt international twice accused Liverpool of throwing him under a bus in response to their dismal Premier League title defence. Salah made sure that everyone else at Liverpool, the club's hierarchy, head coach, and even teammates he professed to love, would be under it with him. This was not leadership from Salah, it was pure self-indulgence and a betrayal of the dressing room. He said there was no relationship with the manager. He said someone wants him out of the club and said he should be starting because of how good he's been. What did you make of it, John?
First of all, you have to have some sympathy for Salah because as great a footballer as he has been, the dying of the light can't be that easy for footballers, can it? And we've seen this with quite a few great footballers who have found it very difficult that when things have gone against them, they've kicked out. Now, Roy Keane at Manchester United is an example. Cristiano Ronaldo still wants to believe that he's still the greatest. But we forget, and they forget, football is a team sport. And unfortunately, Mohamed Salah has played like an absolute drain this season. And this is the thing he appears to forget in that statement. A lengthy statement. I mean, it sounds like a diatribe that he gave to the lads in the mix zone there. And it's true. He picks his moment. Remember last season when he suddenly accused the club of, maybe the phrase wasn't throwing him under the bus, but over his contract. And it looks cynical. Now, I don't know if Salah is a cynical chap. I suspect not. But it's poorly chosen. But he is aware of the media. I think Jamie Carragher's mentioned somewhere along in this screed. Oh, you're all going to talk about me. And then there was this talk about, well, people didn't do this about Harry Kane. Harry Kane is one of the most criticised footballers I could ever remember. And also, I don't remember a 10-game drought for him. Do you? Because Harry Kane just doesn't do that.
Never been one. 6 is his longest drought.
Yeah, exactly. Even I ran through the stats and thought, you're way off there. There has been this theory around for a while that in trying to reboot Liverpool, and that hasn't been a successful reboot, they were trying to build a team for a world without Salah. Well, it appears that Salah has just decided that he's going to be off. There's this talk, isn't there, about how his mum is going to come and watch the Brighton game if he should play, and that's going to be it.
If she's allowed in.
If she's allowed, well...
She the culture editor for The Guardian, that's an issue, isn't it?
I think if she's got a Guardian sub, it may not be allowed, yeah. We'll get to that.
So the image is just amazing. just Brewin and Seb.
Me and Mrs. Salah.
Hello, Mrs. Salah. It appears you've read 327 articles this year. Would you mind giving us?
Would you like to
giving
donate?
Us some money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, John. I mean, it does feel this is an end game play from Salah said, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if of course it is. I think players of his stature genuinely, I say it came out of the blue. These things are planned. It would have been bubbling up. He would have had a decision, I'm sure. He knows that the writing's on the wall because of the way Liverpool have been playing this season, but particularly Salah. He's always been one of those players that his goal and assist return is the thing that's been so important to Liverpool. If that dries up, his general game for the team and the team structure hasn't always been to the team's benefit. So that's the manager's decision. The manager's own job and place at the club is dependent on the decision he makes and the players he picks. I've heard so many ex-pros be upset about this because when it comes down to it, every player probably inside wants to be able to say these things if they're not playing. Every player wants to come out and say, why isn't the manager playing me? Or I should be playing. Or I feel I'm better than that person. I think anybody in any organisation or any business. But it's just the nature of the beast. When you're under that umbrella, whoever you are in that chain, there has to be at some point, you can never be bigger than that organisation, however much you try. And just in humanity in general, it's either death or democracy that brings to an end people who try and court power and try to control it. I'm not putting Mohamed Salah into that, comparing him to any people of the past in that manner. Absolutely not. He is a fine footballer. But it definitely feels like, considering his form, he's lacking people who are behind him on this. If he was still scoring goals and performing well for the team, a lot of supporters would be behind him and there would be that matchup with him and the manager. But this is just football in general. Age always catches up with you, however good you are. Maybe Cristiano Ronaldo debates that. And you are always going to be in a position where at some point you're not going to be in the team. And you as a player have to decide, do I just move away graciously or where do I feel? And when the Sunderland game was the first time he'd been on the bench in successive games, and that is in his career at Liverpool. And so that in itself made you think, hold on, I'm not who I am at this club anymore, and I have to make a decision while my stock is still, as a star, high.
He does no favours for his teammates here, Barry. I mean, yesterday we were on the radio and I did have some sympathy because if you are on the bench and you're Mo Salah and you don't get on for a minute and your team don't win, you will just be fuming. But you made the point, and, since we chatted, it's so calculated that he only talks when he wants to make a statement. It isn't off the cuff, this, is it?
No, it's very calculated. I thought it was quite funny that in his post-match interview, Dominic Szoboszlai was talking about the absolute mess Liverpool find themselves in. He says, the only way we can get out of here is together. And then Mo just goes, hold my beer, Dominic. The fact of the matter is he has not been playing well enough to be in the Liverpool side. And I can understand why he might be sitting in the bench looking at other people on the pitch who are also not playing well enough to be in the Liverpool side. But there are more options when it comes to replacing him than there are, say, when it comes to replacing Ibrahima Konate, who's just a caricature of himself at this stage, or a caricature of the great defender he once was. Jamie Carragher has been relentlessly criticising Mo Salah for not coming out and speaking up in public. So he has now done that. I suspect this isn't exactly what Carragher had in mind when he was hoping he'd come out and speak up and take some responsibility. And I had a certain amount of sympathy for him yesterday, but the more I think about it, it's a very selfish act. Liverpool are already beset by assorted of problems on the pitch, off the pitch, and he has just added to them. Now, Liverpool are due to play Inter tomorrow at San Siro, which means Arne Slot will do a press conference this evening. That is going to attract an awful lot of attention, obviously, and it will be interesting to see if he brings Salah to Milan or includes him in the squad for the game. I suspect he won't. I don't see how he can without looking incredibly weak and undermining his already weak position. And, I mean, Roy Keane was more or less sacked by Manchester United for a less controversial outburst than this, which never saw the light of day. We heard snippets of it, but I don't think Liverpool will sack Salah, but I think what he did is borderline sackable offence, if not an actual sackable offence.
And John, it does Arne Slot no favours, right? And he is under real pressure here. It was interesting, that there is a sentiment, and I think quite a surprising one, about how many Liverpool fans want him to go now. Like, it's got to that stage. And so this is the last thing he needs.
It feels very un-Liverpool, doesn't it? And there is this tradition with Liverpool that they have never sacked a manager who has won a league title. Now, some of that might be to do with the fact that the people that won those titles were all men of a certain age. So Bill Shankly, Bob Paisley, Joe Fagan, all retired because they were in their 60s. And Kenny Dalglish stepped down for personal reasons, as we know, and Jurgen Klopp went for reasons of fatigue. It's a different Liverpool now. They moved on from Jurgen Klopp. The club is essentially run now by the sporting directors, Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, and it's on them. It's on them and FSG to make the decision. And we're in this more pressurised environment where managers getting sacked is a fairly common occurrence. You've seen Manchester United didn't sack managers for many, many years. Now they sack them every 18 months. Why should Liverpool be any different when things go as badly as they are now? Arne Slot was given a team with £500 million, I should say, spent on it. It's gone very badly.
And we've talked about the impact of Diogo Jota, and it's always worth remembering.
Yes.
But they are so, and if we go to the game, if we presume, I don't know, Seb, presume this means that Salah is gone, right? I can't see a way that isn't happening. And it's something like 6-1 on that he's going to Saudi. He's already on 400 grand a week. He will get more in Saudi. And like in years to come, he'll be looked back as one of the greatest Liverpool players ever. And I guess when he goes, we can have that conversation. But I'm conscious of time. The game itself was fantastic. And it showed, you really thought, okay, Liverpool are 2-0 up here, but it just exposed their frailties. And Barry mentioned Konate. For Slot to say, unfortunately for him, he does a lot of things well, but he's been a bit too much at the crime scene. And that penalty that is not what you want to hear your manager say. Like Salah doesn't want to hear, Slot doesn't want what Salah's saying. Konate doesn't want to hear that. Just holding a bloodied knife going, it wasn't me, as the cops come in. But like that penalty is just such a moment where you're like, you can see he's trying to block the cross, but it just looks so bad because Gnonto stays on his feet.
Football is unforgiving. Anytime a team's not in a good way, just everything goes against them. And that's just how it is with individual players as well. Konate, that was always going to happen in a game like this. If you'd seen Leeds play their previous 2 matches, I'll say 1.5 matches, they're a different team now. And from the position where we thought they're probably going to go down, they've given themselves a fighting chance here because they are fighting in the way they are. Even when it seems like the game's going against them, they're throwing everything at the opposition, which makes us think, is that the traditional way we look at the Premier League? And what's supposed to be great about the Premier League is that the inverted commas smaller teams are able to bloody the nose of the bigger sides, even if the game's going against them, even if they're 2-0 down. They keep going. I remember Mesut Ozil saying a quote about that. He said, when I played in Spain, if we were 3-0 up for Real Madrid, the other team would just not give up, but they just wouldn't put the effort in. But that doesn't happen in England. And this was a good example of that. Liverpool in form would have cantered to a victory. And actually, the end result, and even the equaliser at the end, none of that's a surprise in this game. Having watched Liverpool this season, and I know it's been said several times, we go back to those first 5 games where everybody said it's a sign of champions when you're not playing well and you're winning matches. That phrase needs to be put to bed now. If you're playing well, you win games. Sometimes you win games you don't play well. And, sometimes you lose games when you don't play well. And for Liverpool, that's where they are at the moment. That's not to say, are they out of the title race? Who knows? Who knows? It's still too early.
Yeah, there's a lot of time left. I think they probably are, but you're right. It's certainly not a sign of a good team if they're losing games or not winning games when playing badly. I mean, they didn't lose this game, and actually that dummy from McAllister to let Szoboszlai in is like a beautiful moment of quite a few lovely moments on the pitch this weekend. But then to concede again, I don't know what Gravenberch is doing. for that. Seb's brought it up, Barry, but it is worth mentioning Leeds, who've been completely forgotten about in this moment. Like, they had City, Chelsea and Liverpool in consecutive games. They pushed City so close, were unlucky. They beat Chelsea. They've got a point with Liverpool. That's so impressive for Daniel Farke, a man who looked like he might get sacked before a game was even played this season.
Yeah, well, he almost was sacked before, like an hour after Leeds secured promotion. And he got the chance to. I think everyone expected him to be out of a job, today maybe. But his players are playing for him. They gave away 2 daft goals to go 2-0 down in this game. And as Seb says, Liverpool of last year would have just closed it out or won by 3, 4, 5-0. Cody Gakpo had a chance to put Liverpool 3-0 ahead, but Lucas Perry, who I was impressed with in this game, although he was at fault for, I think, the second Liverpool goal, he saved well. And Leeds dug in because, Ibrahima Konate threw them a lifeline. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scores the penalty, and you could see them going, right, we can get something out of this game. And they duly did. And to get it back to 2-2, go behind and restore parity again, it just shows great fight and great spirit. They may still go down, but they're going to go down swinging haymakers by the looks of things.
And how on brand that even if they're swinging haymakers, John, Daniel Farke is saying, I'm just going to have a nice afternoon on the sofa with a slice of cake. He's so non-football manager, isn't he? There's something I absolutely love about how softly spoken this guy is.
Is he really going to sit and just have coffee and cake on his sofa? I don't know. I mean,
you don't believe him?
Well, things with Daniel Farke, he does look like a bouncer on a heavy metal club. So, I could see him sort of going for, travelling down to Nottingham's Rock City or something. So just, let his hair down a bit or something like that. Or, put on Die Totenhosen for the afternoon and just rock out. I mean, you said he was just going to sit on the sofa, but I was thinking, what would he watch? Would he?
No, I think he's got fine china. It's fine china. It's it's a flourless orange cake, and he's watching. I think he's watching a Murder, She Wrote, and I think he's absolutely in his element. That's
Escape to the Country.
That's where he is.
Escape
maybe
to the
a bit
Country,
of that. Yeah, I think so.
Yellowstone,
maybe,
so. Isn't it?
John, which or Seb, as the two who go to more football matches, which noise is better? It's an impossible question. Elland Road with that noise, Seb, or the Holt end that we heard in the 94th minute at Villa Park? They're two great noises in the Premier League.
Oh, I mean, probably Elland Road as a whole.
Yeah.
Right. But the Holt end of Villa Park, I think it's probably the most referred to end in my commentary of any game I do, more than the Kop. Anytime Villa score at that end, it feels like the Holt end has assisted the goal. And the noise was... I mean, what made it great was the build in the crowd emotion, because that ball could have been put in the net about 4 times before it actually went in for the winner. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. People often ask, why do people support teams if they're not winning matches? And it is for moments like this, because you're facing the side to a league leaders and you are thinking you're on this winning run and you think we can close the gap on them. Can we dream? Are we allowed to dream? And then a player who probably, a year or so ago were thinking, would he ever play for Villa again, is the guy to score the winner at that end, and it takes an age for the ball to go into the net. And then I'm sure you'll get onto the Arsenal players' reactions to that goal going in. Everything about it was a masterpiece of a moment in football, and probably the defining few seconds of the weekend on what I think was probably, when you looked at the way all the teams have played over the last week, not many shocks across the weekend. 3 o'clock theory holding very firm.
Yeah, it was, John, and you're right. The reaction of the Arsenal players, it's sort of a team of Sami Kafurs, isn't it? All just beating the ground like this. It's a war. It's platoon. It's everything. But the goal itself, John, I saw that goal. I thought, I know someone who's going to love that goal, and it's John Brewin.
Oh yeah. It was 90s football, given the 2025 touch, wasn't it? Of just scramble, no one can clear it, and then just it being forced in, and then ecstatic celebrations like you would have seen at Prenton Park or Gig Lane back in the mid-90s. And obviously, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? The Holt End, because Villa's stadium is not really being the modernisation that others have or be a new ground, it's almost like the last of those old-style ends that you would have, the various cops around the country, and the Stretford End perhaps isn't the force that it used to be. At Elland Road, actually, if you actually manage to watch a game, and sometimes Seb maybe commentating, if you've got HDR or Dolby Atmos or whatever, Elland Road always sounds the best, I think, if you're watching at home. Yeah. Whoever's doing the mics there is, probably also works at Leeds Refectory doing the sound there or something. It sounds beautiful. But yeah, and also, I was on the desk at the weekend, and I was doing the Clocko, and we raised the question: Arsenal fans, are you getting jittery? And one chap wrote in saying yes, he was feeling very jittery as an Arsenal fan. Yeah, we've been here before. And another one wrote in saying that he thought that email was a fake and that I'd made that up. And that actually Arsenal fans aren't getting jittery at all because he's not getting jittery. And oh no, we're never going to get jittery because, we've got the bet. And they're getting jittery, aren't they? They get getting jittery.
Well, yeah, did Arsenal win the league too early, asked Michael. I mean, someone who isn't getting jittery, and this would give me real faith as an Arsenal fan, Barry, is Mikel Arteta, who was incredibly measured after that defeat.
Yeah, I thought so. He wasn't angry. I presumed, because this is the way football is now, I presumed that the curtain twitchers in Stockley Park would find some reason to rule out that winner. They didn't, and there was no reason to rule it out. But I thought Mikel Arteta might have discerned one somewhere. But he really took this on the chin. He wasn't crushed after the game. He was obviously disappointed, but he wasn't crushed. And he just said, look, it's the first game we've lost in after 18 unbeaten, and we go again. And that's fair enough, because the reaction of his players, like you say, was like platoon. David Raya doing the worm across the penalty area, various players beating the turf in frustration. So he needs to, get them in the dressing room and go, look, it's not the end of the world. We're still at the top of the table. I didn't think Arsenal played that badly. Eberechi Eze had a terrible game, which was odd from him. He was shocking. Calafiore wasn't great either, and I've really come to admire him this season. But I thought Arsenal did okay, and it's a game that could have gone either way, but it went Villa's way. And it was a great game of football.
Yeah, it was really good. And actually, it felt like that goal was coming. They'd had chances. Tielemans was brilliant as well. And they did open up Arsenal in a way that other teams haven't done so far. Yeah. I mean, the question said that, I think you're right. It's too early to decide who is in the title race or who isn't. But we really want one. Arsenal, I still think, look like the most solid team with the most depth. And I feel it's only them or City over a whole season. But, Villa fans will be saying, well, why not us? 9 wins in 10.
Yeah. I actually think the reason why I think it's only Arsenal or City is more because of Man City. Because for me, the thing that City have over Arsenal, there's two things. I was discussing this with a player yesterday, and he said, obviously, they've got this experience of winning the title, but not all their players do. But Manchester City, the way they play and the way they win games, is they're always so relaxed. They never feel... There's never any tension, not at the Etihad, not amongst the players. Obviously, Pep's got that tense face, but it fluctuates.
There was a Craven Cottage last week, Seb. I would.
Yeah, but I mean, it's mainly because if you're that far up, they got too relaxed in that game. They were too relaxed, perhaps, and they let Fulham back in. But they still ultimately won the game. They got the win over Leeds. It was a nice run of fixtures they had on paper as well, in a week where Arsenal had quite a difficult week and a half, considering they had Spurs, then Bayern, then Chelsea, then the injury issues. They've lost both centre halves, so you could get at them there. But the defence, they'll get their act together, I believe, and still be a side competing. But I do think that City's attacking flair, and nobody else, I think, has that attacking flair in the same way. I think of Haaland and Doku and Foden and Cherki. I won't go into the game in detail, but
let's go. We might as well go to that.
Well,
now.
yeah, I mean, they're players that play with a freedom. I don't always feel that Arsenal attack with the same freedom and the ability to. They have players maybe that can do it, and I think that's why Eze was brought in. But like Barry's mentioned, he didn't play with that freedom. It's not. Pep's managed to provide a situation this season whereby defensively you can get at them, but are you going to outscore them? Is it going to be a situation where they last? And that being relaxed and having that attacking freedom is what they have over Arsenal, which probably stops Villa because do Villa have as much of that as City do? That's the difference.
City beat Sunderland 3-0. We should talk about Rayan Cherki's rabona, John. I mean, I accept it's a great skill, but I'm sort of with Pep here. I'm not a big rabona man, if you ask me.
Tricky to say, isn't it?
Wait. Well,
thank you, Seb. Yes. Just a very important ra in there, but I got it in. But thanks for dragging us down to your level, Seb.
We're all of a certain age here, and if anyone wants to advertise, way back in the dim and distant past, pre Football Weekly for me podcast, I committed the malapropism of calling the rabona the rotunda, which amused my co-host very much. This rotunda, it did seem a little bit gratuitous, didn't it? But it was beautiful, and Phil Foden particularly enjoyed it in the way that he went to celebrate with Cherki. You could tell that's the Friday afternoon. It's 2 minutes till they blow the whistle and it's time to go for lunch, sort of messing about moment. They all attempt. And he did it in a game. Cherki is one of those players, I think, that was looked at by a lot of teams because of his great amount of skill. We weren't sure about his consistency. He's with the right manager, with Pep, who's finally... They got him and Rangers, didn't they, in that sort of De Bruyne position, right? And obviously they lost Gundogan as well. And Rangers came on as a substitute. And is Cherki going to be the man to assume that mantle? Well, he's not the player Kevin De Bruyne is, but he is a beautiful player to watch. And I think the point Seb makes is that it's flair. It's if Pep is going to depart football soon, and we don't know that. He's decided he's going to do it by enjoying himself, hasn't he? He likes this team and he likes the way they play. It's a bit post late Wenger and late Brian Clough, where it's like, I just like to see him play nice football, and that's what they do.
I'm not sure late Wenger. I mean, there's a lot of...
Or late Clough, really, when I think about it.
And actually... but Cherki, actually, his balance for the one where he set up Haaland was even better for me, and Haaland should have scored. I like his sort of Bugsy Malone greased hair. That was really good. Look, from a Sunderland point of view, they had a couple of chances at 2-0, Baz. If one of those goes in, maybe it does change the game, but they didn't.
No, they didn't. Isidore probably should have scored. He robbed Ruben Diaz of the ball, and his shot was well saved by Donnarumma. Granit Xhaka spanked one off the post. I've no problem with Sunderland losing this game. City deserved to win. What I did have a problem with was Luke O'Neill getting sent off when Sunderland were already 3-0 down for a stupid challenge on Mateus Nunes. It's completely unnecessary. We have spoken about how Sunderland are going to lose 7 players to AFCON. Presumably they'll be off after next weekend. And Luke O'Neill's now got himself a 3-match ban when he will be needed. And that, it's dumb. And I love Luke O'Neill. I love him. I still don't know whether he's called Luke O'Neill or Luke O'Nine. I keep hearing different people call him different things. So Luke O'Neill.
Everyone else calls him Luke O'Nine, but it didn't stop you with Neymar for a decade. So,
no, not everyone.
What was the Neymar one?
What was the
Neymar? What was the Neymar one?
I used to call him Neymar. Not everybody calls Luke 9, Luco 9. Some commentators call him Luco 9.
Okay.
So,
Noted.
yeah. Anyway,
You have my apologies.
It was dumb. And,
yeah, it was dumb. It was
I
a grim
wish he
challenge,
hadn't done
actually.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Look, that'll do for part one. Part two, we'll look at the sides in the ludicrously tight race for fourth place. Welcome to part two of the Guardian Football Weekly. I mean, probably too early to call it the race for fourth place. But yeah, Palace are fourth with 26 points. Manchester United are 12th with 22 points. So it is tight in there. And if anyone puts a run together, they will at least be in those environs for a little bit. Palace won 2-1 at Fulham. And actually, I thought, John, this was a really, really entertaining game. Either side could have won it. I thought the Nketiah, the Wharton pass to Nketiah was joyous, and the Harry Wilson goal was even better.
Yeah, great game, great advert for the Premier League for what might have seemed a underwhelming Super Sunday. I know it is next week. It's Brentford v Leeds, so we're for some reason Super Sunday is undercutting itself at the moment. We're not going for the Grand Slam Sundays at the moment, but this was. How often do we see that Marco Silva grimace at the end of the game when his team play well, play nice attacking football and get caught out at the end? I do wonder how long Marco is going to be around at Fulham. They'll miss him when he's gone. But yeah, great game. Palace. The commentary, Jamie Carragher just keeps referring to Oliver Glasner as the greatest manager in Crystal Palace's history. And I did think that was a bit unfair on Steve Coppell and various others that have done a great job there. Oliver Glasner has done a fine job. He won them a trophy, the first in their history, but he was probably not there for a long time, and he's not been build the empires of someone like Steve Coppell. And Mark Guay, who of course scored the winner, won't be there next season. So it does feel Palace are having a great time. It's a very high point in their history. Enjoy it while you can. I'm sorry, that's the way football goes sometimes, isn't it?
Seb, the Harry Wilson goal. I mean, he scored a brilliant goal at Tottenham with like the inside of his left foot. And this move, it's just that it's three perfect touches between him and Jimenez. And that finish is just absolutely beautiful.
He's a scorer of great goals, Harry Wilson. And he is one of those players, when you're watching him, you just do want him to shoot. When the fans cheer, shoot, and most of the time they're doing it ironically because it's a centre half who strolled forward. But in Harry Wilson's case, I just think there are certain players who just think if they get a bit of space and they get the room, just have a go. And he is definitely one of those players. And also, again, a player who you think, is he going to be playing a lot of Premier League games? Is he a player who's going to be starting week in, week out? He's certainly an important player for Fulham, although goals aren't proving to earn the points that Fulham need at the moment, and they're in a season where it had promised to begin with, and refereeing decisions were going against them. But you start to look at them now; these narrow defeats, these gut-wrenching defeats, these heartbreaking games. They will just mean nothing by the end of the season if you're in the relegation zone. And Fulham felt like a team who would be nowhere near it. But
absolutely fine, I think.
But look at the way Leeds are playing. You know, somebody's got to be dragged in there. West Ham picking up points. Who knows? But I agree with you. But even from a Fulham point of view, that they'll be starting to get worried because the points are what matters.
Everton are sixth, Barry. David said, who was more visibly delighted? Barry meeting Neil Redfern in real life, or Tierno Barry scoring an actual factual goal? A bad day for the Everton funk. The delight for him and for everyone, the fans, the players, everyone. It was just such a joyous moment.
Yeah, he was so thrilled, and his teammates were obviously so thrilled on his behalf. It's been a long time coming, and when Everton broke up field with Njai on the ball in the 3-on-1, he had players to either side. I presumed he would slip it to the side that Tierno Barry wasn't on. I can't remember who was to his right, but he slipped it to Barry. Barry put it in the bottom corner. So delighted. He was almost certainly waiting for it to be chalked off, but that didn't happen. And delighted for him. My prediction that Everton would finish 19th is looking increasingly stupid. I still think they're in a false position, but I also think they could conceivably be higher if they had strikers who could score goals. They're just having such an odd season. They've got points from games they probably shouldn't have. That's fine. That's allowed. But they could have won more games if Beto and Barry were scoring on an even remotely frequent basis. This could be the confidence booster he needs to go on a run. We don't know. Time will tell. So it's a very interesting season for Everton. Like you said yesterday, you just presumed they were 15th. They're 5th. They're 6th now after yesterday's games. But David Moyes, after the game, said he refuses. He's too old to talk about them going down or getting into Europe. But you can see he definitely has his eye on a European spot. And I don't see why they shouldn't get one.
I like David Moyes. He's now so old. He's at that sort of Morgan Freeman at the parole officer age, where he's like,
I don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit. Sign your form, Sonny. Put me in 15th again. I don't care. And he goes, actually 5th. There you go, mate. John, you wanted to come in
from Tiny Acorns. Because I was at Bournemouth Everton on Tuesday, and someone told me that when Barry had a shot in that game, that was his first shot on target of the entire Premier League season. And so he followed that up.
He's now only had 2, by the way, John.
Right, okay.
John, he's now had two shots on target in the Premier League season. 15
He has
appearances.
also hit the woodwork, which Troy Townsend would have us believe is a shot on target.
Yeah,
and I think he's had at least 1, if not 2 goals ruled out. So
yeah. Oh, it could be. You're right. He could be a giant oak tree by the end of all this. Spurs beat Brentford 2-0. Their first home win since the opening weekend of the season. Their first win in 6. I mean, Barry, God, they needed this. And Spurs regulation 2-0 win over a side they should beat is remarkable in the fact that it never ever happens. But they were really good. They were good all game. Xavi Simons was excellent. Move on.
I mean, this very much was a must-win game for Thomas Frank, I think, because if Brentford, his former club, had gone to Spurs and won, I don't know if there'd have been any coming back from that for Thomas Frank, given the low opinion quite sizable proportion of the Spurs fans already seem to have of him. Xavi Simons, I'm a big fan of, as you know. He assisted and scored. And it was a routine victory, but not routine insofar as there was a lot of pressure on Frank and Spurs for this game. And it was a good performance from them. And on Match of the Day, they put up stats that show that Spurs are a considerably better team when Xavi Simons plays for them. So they're better in every metric. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, but they should probably pick him. I was surprised with those stats, but people have talked about his physicality in the same way as Florian Wirtz. And obviously his technique, everyone goes, well, he's good, but he's just a waif. But he looked quick and strong in this game, which I think Spurs fans will be pleased with. And Archie Gray was excellent too. To the Amex, if we can. Thomas says, can any of you now report about Brighton or go to the stadium anymore? Seb, you were there, not for The Guardian. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it now. John, you were our assigned reporter for this game. When did you find out that you were not allowed to go?
Well, I went to bed very early on Saturday evening in readiness for my trip to Brighton, and just as I was stepping out the door, and I'd already been out the door and decided my shoes were not befitting of the weather conditions and might rub, so I came back in, got a text from one of the chaps at Brighton who I know well to say, have you read your email? And I read my email, and it told me that journalists and photographers are no longer allowed at Brighton due to reporting on Tony Bloom, the owner. Yes, the match report was done from my front room. An interesting feeling. And I relied on Seb's wonderful commentary to guide me through this game.
This is from the paper. Brighton and Hove Albion have banned the Guardian reporters and photographers from attending matches at the Amex after the Guardian reported on allegations relating to the Premier League club's owner, Tony Bloom. The club notified the Guardian on Sunday by email to John Brewin to say it felt it would be inappropriate for journalists and photographers to be accredited to matches. There have been reports in The Guardian that have raised questions from MPs about the activities of Bloom, who is a billionaire who made his money from gambling. The Guardian revealed last week Bloom is being sued in a lawsuit that alleges frontmen were sometimes used when his gambling syndicate placed bets on sports events. The syndicate makes around £600 million each year in winnings, according to that document. Bloom has yet to file a defence to the lawsuit. He didn't respond to questions from The Guardian about the claim. On Friday, The Guardian published a second story which focused on allegations Bloom could be an anonymous gambler behind £52 million in winnings, which allegedly included bets on his football teams. Bloom declined to comment about this specific claim, but through a source made clear he denied betting on his own teams or competitions that involved them, describing any allegations as entirely false. Following the publication of the story, he issued a public statement through Brighton, which said, "I can categorically assure our supporters I've not placed bets on any Brighton Hove Albion matches since becoming the owner of the club in 2009. A spokesperson for The Guardian said, "It's a worrying development that Brighton has introduced this ban. The questions raised by our reporting are in the public interest and have been pursued in a responsible manner." I mean, I guess the thing, Barry, this normally happens with a local paper and a local journo not being able to go in because he's asking annoying questions of, a club. And I think we've always maintained we think it's a bad look for a club. It feels to me a bad look for Brighton, but I'm aware that we are part of the story.
It's never a good look when a club bans a reporter. Brighton have had a few PR ricks in the past couple of weeks. There was that photo shoot with Cara Matoma and some other young player holding a photograph of a Japanese soldier, which offended a lot of people in China. And now this. There's also the Streisand effect, because it's banning the Guardian is just going to draw more attention to this Tony Bloom case. It will be interesting to see what happens from now. Because it's not good optics for Brighton. And as far as I can tell, all this stuff the Guardian has reported is in the public domain. It's so.
Yes, as opposed to sort of an investigation by the paper. I mean, you'd imagine in most places the Guardian would have no chance against a football club, but in Brighton, it's as Guardian as it gets. To the game itself, West Ham scored pretty late on and looked like that had sealed the points. And then they looked like... Is it Mavropanos? If he goes down holding his head, I think that goal is disallowed.
Yeah, and I was discussing this afterwards with Martin Tyler, who's obviously watched a lot more games than I have. And some people will say, we want to see overhead kicks in the game. We don't want to discourage them. But at the same time, if an overhead kick results in somebody being struck to the head, what's more important, in the grand scheme of things? The handball, obviously I have VAR in my ear and I have to just relay what they say. I mean, at that point, I'm not giving an opinion. I've handed over to the co-commentator. But actually, when I heard when somebody handles the ball and then there's not much time passes after that, and it's basically perceived as it's not close enough to the goal. An accidental handball can only disallow a goal if it directly leads to the ball going into the net. Essentially, it's the next action, and it wasn't the case when it came to Rutte. I mean, the biggest thing about it is, and the most galling thing for West Ham is, they defended very well in the game. They played very well. And Brighton's first, in fact, all their shots on target, all 4 of their shots on target were on the 90th minute onwards. So they'd gone that long without really troubling the goal. And then for that to be the goal that won it with, I think actually in the build-up to that goal, 3 of the shots on target were in that build-up. It's really tough to take for West Ham because they did deserve to win the game, I think, overall. They offered enough. They had some good chances. Verbruggen made a double save that on another day would have gone in. Even Mavropanos with the last kick of the game, or last head of the game, it should have scored, as they say. I did feel for West Ham in that moment, not just because on another day the goal could have been disallowed.
If Areola doesn't save that first Rutter shot and it goes in, it would have been disallowed for the handball. There's no question. So
Fabianski wouldn't have saved it, would he?
Yeah, exactly. So it's another vagary of VAR, and Nuno was gutted afterwards, and I can totally understand his frustration. But if you look past the high boot, and we're looking, that's a lot to look past. The correct procedure was followed, and that shouldn't be the correct procedure.
But it is. But, laws are slightly annoying, aren't they? Let's do the last two games quite quickly because I want to talk about the World Cup draw in some detail. Newcastle beat Burnley 2-1. I mean, we talked about that Mavropanos header, Seb, and actually Burnley do have a chance, and they right at the death. They've scored late on. They've got a penalty. Fleming's put it away. And, Newcastle, who let a 2-1 lead slip against Spurs, if that had happened again, it would have been desperate at St James's.
That's the thing we were talking about Fulham a moment or two ago. Just moments, I think, if Newcastle had conceded an equaliser to Burnley playing against 10 men, it would have really racked up the pressure on Eddie Howe, actually, funnily enough. Because when you look at them this season, I think there's a lot of belief that they should be doing better. Although the problem with the table is it's so tight, and a couple of wins and the team all of a sudden their season looks great. That's the situation they're in. Burnley, I feel for them every time they turn out. I just think every goal they concede, you could just see the look on the players. It's not that they're not. It's just that we're not really going to stay up, are we? We'll give it a go. And maybe that's the situation: is they give it as much as a go as they can. They fall behind, maybe fall another goal behind, and then they had nothing to lose at that point when they were down to 10. So they threw everything at it and tried to build on maybe nerves in St James's Park at that situation. And you do think about it. It's the same with the Fulham Man City game. If Fulham had got that chance at the end and it got in, again, it changes the whole complexion, not just of Fulham's season, of Manchester City, the title race, everything. But it didn't happen. And ultimately, that's the situation with Burnley. They are I'm more confident in them, much more than I was with Leeds a couple of weeks ago, of course. But I think Burnley, it's not going to happen for them, is it?
And look, well done to Bruno Guimaraes for scoring direct from a corner. But, it's called an Olympico, but it gets far too much credit. No one's trying to do that. I don't believe anyone's trying to do it. And it's just they're just sticking it in the mixer. So
I'm surprised more players don't try to do it.
But you can't, it's not like scoring a free kick because there's just so many variables, right? You can't guarantee, it's just not the same because there are so many players there. I think it always makes the keeper look bad.
De Kuyper almost did it yesterday for Brighton, and it was the conditions that almost did it. Weirdly, the conditions helped it swing in, and then the conditions took it away from the goal at the same time.
Right.
So they helped and then hindered in the space of a couple of seconds. So yeah,
maybe I'm just a killjoy, but I don't want Rabonas and I don't want Olympicos. Bournemouth 0, Chelsea 0. It was a game of two halves. Bournemouth should have been 4 up by half time. Chelsea should have made it 4-4 by the end, but no one scored. And we won't talk about it because I want to talk about the World Cup draw, and we'll do that in part 3. What was part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly? I mean, so where do we even start on this? It was, I mean, I found it so mesmerising. Like there was so many parts of it that were just, and I've done some bad shows, Did you
get a Peace Prize for those? Or did you?
But I was watching this, Barry, and I was like, wow. I don't know. You take it in whatever direction you want to take it.
Loved it. It was so bad and so cringe. It was good. Parts of it were incredibly distasteful, mainly the bit in the middle that descended into what was ostensibly a Trump rally. Nobody wants that, but we all knew it was coming. Gianni and Infantino's obsequiousness in the face of the American president, two thoroughly despicable men, seemed to know no bounds. He gave Trump his medal, which Trump couldn't get around his own neck fast enough. Infantino more or less said, you are a wonderful man and you can do whatever. On behalf of all football fans, I give you carte blanche to do whatever you want. Well, you're not speaking for me there, Gianni, and you're not speaking for lots of people, despite your claims to the contrary. But that aside, I really enjoyed it. The really unfunny scripted gags, the really unfunny ad-lib banter, the little and large combo of Heidi Klum and Kevin Hart, the stilted conversation between Rio Ferdinand, Samantha Johnson, and that Ramirez chap who was going around the audience interviewing people, and it was glorious. It dragged on, obviously, as these things tend to do, but I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't look away.
I thought, I don't know about
it
you,
was
John,
like a fever dream, and you just didn't know where it was going next.
Yeah, there were lots of comparisons to Sam Fox and Mick Fleetwood with Kevin Hart and Heidi Klum, John. And I just love Heidi Klum as just this kind of, she's almost impervious. In fact, there was so little reaction from the crowd at all points. I just couldn't hear another person say, I said good evening. I just couldn't. It was like, oh God, let it go. And she's delivering these lines, oh Kevin, with these Ferrero Rocher, you must be spoiling us. Anyway, and then I don't know. Then Gianni's. Everyone say USA, USA, USA. Oh,
somebody told Gianni Infantino he was funny, and as a result of this, I mean. Barry and me and Barry were doing the I did the build up to this on the live blog and then handed over to Barry in the Terry Wogan / Graham Norton role, and so I stayed watching it, but there were points when I had to go into the kitchen because it was so grim. When you go to a party and like you maybe overdo it and you go in the kitchen and sort of retch in the sink or something like that. I mean, it's been a long time.
Wow, okay.
That was how I felt. And I have several questions. Robbie Williams and Nicole Scherzinger, what was that song? Even Robbie, while he was singing it, was like, this is rubbish, isn't it? He just sort of like...
Yeah.
And also, who is Kevin Hart? I wasn't aware of his work. I mean,
he's a comedian and actor.
He's pretty famous.
I know he's famous.
Have you not seen Jumanji? Have you not seen the new Jumanjis, John? It strike me as. Did they pass you by the new?
We don't know each other very well, do we? But no, it's no, I haven't. But like, it was put to me that Kevin Hart is in a series of not very successful things, and he's. Why was he there? Could they not have got? Actually,
he's seen as a safe pair of hands, John. He does a lot of those kind of awards ceremonies.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, there was only one big award at this ceremony, but yeah, he's very much a safe pair of hands.
But I think everybody was terribly cast. Like, it's a movie where, like, why is he doing this? Why is Rio Ferdinand doing the permutations? I mean, this is amazing.
Isn't there an accusation that Rio got the draw wrong with Uzbekistan and Panama? And there is this.
No, he didn't get it. He didn't get it wrong. He just didn't explain why Uzbekistan ended up in the group, so that confused everybody. I got the
impression he
in
thought
a night of
Uzbekistan
confusion
was in Europe, which because Kazakhstan played UEFA, you might make that mistake, I suppose. But
I suppose to give him his dues, Rio, like Wayne Gretzky really took the biscuit for not knowing what's going on. Like everyone else, Shaquille O'Neal was pretty, he was slow at all of this. Was it Samantha Johnson that kept going, you're doing really well, Shaq, keep going, like talking to like your kid at the egg and spoon race who's right at the back, and then Gretzky coming out and like completely baffled why he's got the 4 teams every time he pulls out a card. He's like, why have I got all these names, Krakow instead of Curacao and North Macadamia. I mean, that's so.
He was stitched up.
Seb.
No, he was.
Get stitched up.
I reckon
their countries.
I know. But if you'd thrown that to Shaquille O'Neal, I bet he would have thrown a few macadamias in and Bosnias and whatever. I'm not saying that's what I'm saying. He drew the short straw.
I was going to. You develop a newfound respect for Giorgio Marchetti, don't you? That does the Champions League draw. That's slick. That's how it's done. Or game show hosts. I mean, Rio Ferdinand, I don't think he's going to be hosting a game show after that, which is maybe the end game here. I mean, it did look at one point like 15-1. You had Gianni and you had the presidents of the United States, Mexico, and Canada all lined up. The Prime Minister of Canada, I should say, lined up. And that bit where they pulled out their own... Even the thing is, there was a point where when Trump's looking the most level guy on there and he's sort of looking at Gianni thinking, you're going a bit far here, mate. You know you've got problems then, don't you?
So Mark Carney and Claudia Scheinbaum had just picked out Canada and Mexico respectively, and Trump just sort of looks at Gianni. It's his turn. He goes, I think I know what this is going to be. And it was just the timing was, I, for the first time in my life, I went, that was funny, Trump. Good man.
He had just won a Peace Prize, which, that was the sequence. We all knew it was going to be the least surprising thing in the world. And it was just that, just as we've talked before, if you have no shame, these two men are standing there going, everyone is going, this is ridiculous, but they just crack on and just do it with such conviction. At the end of it all, Seb, we do have a draw. And England have Croatia, Ghana and Panama. Thank you to everyone in my mentions for saying, Croatia tired by now and it's my own fault, that I've trained everyone to say that. Dallas, Boston and New York, I think they're under a roof, aren't they, in Dallas for that game? It's a good draw, I think, for England, Seb, isn't it?
Yeah, and all these locations, I mean, except for the people who are travelling and paying a lot of money to go and see these games, will forget about those locations unless England lose, and then it will become that night in Dallas or whatever. But the draw to me, I love World Cups, and the draw was the most interesting part in many ways, because a lot of those games, there's going to be little jeopardy for the big sides. All it might do is knock them on a pathway where they're more likely to play a bigger side earlier. Whereas some of the sides, it will give some teams, some of the outsiders, a chance to get through. And it's not, for a side like Scotland, for example, it's not clear cut. But I'll be brutally honest with you, because of the nature of the draw of the whole evening, my son watched part of it, and I think you get a view of these events like this by what children say. I mean, my son started by just saying, he's bald, when he was talking about Infantino. He's bald.
Yeah.
Which got the game. Didn't say he was funny. Didn't say anything else like that. It was a night where having to explain the draw constantly is an issue, even in a group of football people. 99% were men in there, which my wife pointed out she wasn't very happy about. And you looked at that audience and you thought, they don't understand. The coaches don't understand what's going on here, why certain teams are in this group and the knock-on effect. I mean, I'd worked it out a long time ago that England were going to have Ghana in their group by the time it came round to that final team coming out, which meant the draw felt a bit pointless because of all those restrictions. And you do think, what's the way round that? I think African teams get done in this scenario because Europe can only have two teams in, and Africa has a fair number of countries and some strong teams. They do get done over a bit. They do end up being in tough groups by that very nature. And then everybody says it's a group of death, mainly because one of the African teams is in that group. So France and Senegal. I'm using this opportunity. You asked me about England's group. I wanted to mention some other things from the evening that stood out to me. Mainly Lionel Scaloni answering in Spanish and Heidi Klum having really no idea what he said. And then Ramirez, who does know what the people are saying when they're speaking in Spanish, not translating to the audience, which I thought was also interesting. Lauryn Hill trying to G up a crowd of middle-aged blokes who don't listen to her music was also interesting. And if the village people can't be asked at the end of the night, I don't think I've seen more lacklustre singing of that song by anybody. I mean, they are getting on a bit. But if they don't
someone
care,
did say some of the village people, they can't lift their arms up to do the Y anymore, which I thought was...
I think they were asking themselves why. We don't care about the draw. We just care about the end of the night.
Fine. Scotland have Haiti, Morocco and Brazil. They play... a Scottish fan did a great thing going, because they're talking about the kickoff times, because England kick off at 9 p.m. twice and 10 p.m., which is actually pretty good given the time difference. But Scotland kick off at 2 a.m., 11 p.m. and 11 p.m. But someone said, look, Scotland kick off against Haiti at 2 a.m., Morocco at 11 p.m. and Brazil at 11 p.m., 11:06, 11:25, 11:45, midday and 12:32. But anyway, just one win and it gets you through.